Okay, hello everyone, how's it going? Hello. I wanted to make this video today to talk about Boneshatter of complex trauma a little bit more. As you guys know, I made a video yesterday where I talked about my league start plan with Boneshatter Jug, where I shared this POB, which is basically normal run-of-the-mill Boneshatter, no transfiguration, just straight up normal textbook Boneshatter Jug. And I want to now compare this build to a new build that I've been cooking, which involves Boneshatter of complex trauma. So for those of you who don't know, Boneshatter of complex trauma here is basically this. Just to briefly summarize, instead of stacking trauma as high as you can, you instead try to go for 9 trauma, and you want to sustain 9 trauma only, because if you go to 10, you lose it. And then to compensate, you now get 20% more damage per trauma as opposed to 5%. So in order to use this gem optimally, we want to stay at 9 trauma forever, or always. And I've basically done a bunch of POBing over the last couple hours, and I think I came up with something really good, and maybe something even like a little special. So I want to share this with you guys today and just get some thoughts. So this POB is the same build as my Boneshatter Jug, the normal version. The gear is all the same. The only thing that's different is that I replaced my weapon with a karui chopper so that I could get less attack speed to make use of Boneshatter of complex trauma. Then in the configs, I have set my trauma stacks to 36, which is equal to 180 divided by 5. Because this POB assumes that trauma is 5% more damage per stack. And then with 9 stacks of trauma, with complex trauma, that's 180 total more damage from trauma. So then 180 divided by 5 is 36. So that's how I set up this POB. And then in addition to that and the karui chopper, I have also replaced fortify support with Multistrike. And then I have anointed window of opportunity. And this is basically an optimization to optimize your skill effect duration and attack speed. So here I have a calculation for the attack speed threshold. This 9 is the maximum stacks of trauma I can use. This 5.1 is my skill effect duration, which you can see here. My skill effect duration on trauma is 5.1, it says right there. And that's the 6 base with window of opportunity, and that's it. Then the 3 is from Multistrike, because Multistrike allows you to hit 3 times, but Boneshatter only gains trauma the first time an attack hits an enemy, right? And you only take the trauma damage when you gain trauma. So with Multistrike, you can hit 3 times, and only the first hit is going to give you trauma, and only the first hit will deal you trauma damage. And then to compensate for that, you get a little bit more attack speed from the repeat, and then you get a little bit less damage to balance everything out. So because this will only gain trauma 1 every 3 hits with Multistrike, in order to calculate the APS threshold, you have to multiply this by 3. And one thing that people were saying in my other video, which is actually incorrect, is that you should calculate this with not 9, but 9.99. And this is actually incorrect. And the reason that this is incorrect is because even though this in POB will still say 9 stacks, you will sometimes get 10 stacks. And to illustrate this, let's give an example, which is that you have 2 maximum stacks of trauma, or you want to go for like 1 stack of trauma maximum with a trauma duration of 2 seconds. If I have 0.5 attack speed, I will always be at 1 stack of trauma. However, if I have 0.99 attack speed, then I will gain my second stack of trauma in 1.98 seconds. And if my trauma duration is 2, then for a split second, I will have 2 stacks of trauma, and then my build will be bricked. So therefore, the number here, which represents your trauma stack in the numerator, or your maximum trauma stacks that you want, it must be exactly 9. It cannot be 9.99. In fact, anything above 9 in this calculation will allow you to lose trauma stacks randomly. So you cannot have that. It must be 9. So then your breakpoint is 5.294. Your attack speed must be equal to or lower than this value for complex trauma to work. And then another concern with this strat is that you cannot allow yourself to gain any sources of errant attack speed. But fortunately for us, I've optimized this to not include any sources of extra attack speed that might happen randomly. So this build, this PoB with complex trauma has no rage, right? I have no rage. I do not take the rage mastery. I do not use berserk. I have perma onslaught from my body armor here with the essence craft. And then I am also not using blood rage. So I cannot gain frenzy charges. And then as long as I don't click a haste shrine, and as long as I don't get like haste aura from an NPC, my attack speed will always be 5.23. Nothing can make it go up except for live wire, which is a random buff that you can get, but that's very random. And then because of this, you're also able to use the totem, because if you don't have the totem, the Ancestral Protector, your attack speed will be lower, which is totally fine for mapping. And then on single target, you can drop the totem for a lot of effective damage scaling. So those are basically the core concepts of this build. And then in addition to all of that, I also have all the other requirements of Boneshatter satisfied for efficiency. We have 100% impale chance. This is just from the tree, a betrayal craft on the weapon, and then 10% impale chance implicit on the gloves, which should be fairly easy to come by. And then precise technique is also met using attack speed crafts on the helmet and the glove, which also should not be too hard, because all you need is attack speed accuracy on the glove, life, and then helmet, just life armor accuracy. This is actually incorrect. I should be using a basalt flask here, and this quartz flask can be like reduced effective curses or whatever. Okay, whatever. Okay, so that's basically the main idea. And then I was also able to drop 2 gems by doing this refactor, because the default build that I was using ran berserk and then blood rage, right? But because we no longer have rage, and because we no longer use blood rage, I was able to basically replace the blood rage with calling strike, and that gives me a little bit more damage against single target. And then I also replaced the the berserk with a life tap, which allows me to run vulnerability and molten shell in CWDT and not have to worry about this mana cost, because the mana cost of vulnerability can sometimes get pretty high. So that's basically that. So gained calling strike and then life tap to ease up on the mana. And then everything else is basically the same. The anointment is obviously changed to window of opportunity. All the other gear is the same. And then using a karui chopper allows you to like compensate for your less attack speed by giving you more base damage. And then with Ancestral Protector up, we're able to exactly get under the breakpoint of 5.29. And this is also pretty flexible as well, sorry. Like, you can micromanage your attack speed however you want to. You can basically, like, get an attack speed on your glove or attack speed on your weapon to whatever you want it to be. You can take whatever attack speed wheels you want. As long as it's below the threshold, you're fine, in theory. And then this PoB also does not have any quality scaling copium. I do not scale any quality above 20% on my Boneshatter, although we don't know what quality exactly will do on this. They did reveal the gem at 20 quality, but it's not clear what it does. And I don't want to, like, you know, I don't want to like claim that it will increase the more damage per trauma, but I hope it does, because if it does, then you could possibly scale the build even more with like the weapon craft, or I don't know if you would want to craft quality on your weapon, but you could if you wanted to. Or I guess you could run enhance in place of some gem if it would give you a damage multiplier. But again, we need to get the gem itself. We need to like see the full gem data before we can like fully commit to quality scaling optimizations. So yeah, so that's basically this build. And then another interesting thing to mention is that Boneshatter of Complex Trauma actually allows you to take less trauma damage for two reasons. Reason number one is that with less attack speed, you obviously take less trauma, right? And then also, the actual number value of the trauma that you take is less. Boneshatter of Complex Trauma is 497 trauma, and your maximum trauma on this build is going to be 9. Therefore, you will be taking 4,400 trauma damage per hit before mitigation. With a normal Boneshatter, however, it is 194 per trauma, and a Juggernaut build can easily get 40 stacks. So therefore, on a normal Boneshatter build, you would be taking 7,000 physical damage per trauma. So not only are you taking nearly half the trauma damage per hit, but also with this new build, you're also using Multistrike. So you're actually only taking this trauma damage once every 3 hits. So then with an attack speed of 5.23, you would basically only be taking your trauma damage like every, I don't know, 1.7 attacks or something. Whereas with a normal build, you would be taking your trauma damage 5 times a second, right? So then on a normal build, your total trauma damage taken per second is like this value multiplied by like 5. Wait, that's the wrong one. Here. On your normal build, your total trauma damage taken per second is this value multiplied by 5, which is like this. And then on the new build, your total trauma damage taken per second is this value multiplied by 1.7 with Multistrike accounted for, which is this. So as you guys can see, your total damage taken from trauma in the new build is 7,000, and in the old build, it's 38,000. That's crazy, right? That's like 5 times less trauma damage. So that should greatly increase your survivability. Although you're still taking 7,000 raw trauma damage per second. So I think it's still good to be a jug. But if you can get enough Fizmet, taking 7,000 raw trauma damage per second is not even a big deal. If you have like if you have like, I don't know, let's just throw a ballpark number out there. Like if you have like 50k armor or something, right? Like you're probably only going to be taking like, I don't know, 1,000 trauma damage per hit if your trauma base damage is like 4,000. So there is a possibility that this build doesn't even have to be a jug, because the trauma damage that you take is 5 times less of what you would normally take. Therefore, there is a possibility that this build is actually more optimal on an ascendancy that is not jug, that has more damage. Although I have no idea what that would be. I would probably personally still play it as jug, just because it's so comfy to scale armor. And then also you have excellent scaling of accuracy, and then, you know, like preventing your damage allows you to get more life regen. So it's just like very synergistic. But I don't know, maybe someone can come up with a build that's like not using jug for Boneshatter that has enough Fizmet to offset the trauma damage of this build, which is only going to be, you know, 7,000 physical damage raw per second, which most builds should be able to mitigate no matter what the ascendancy, if you try enough. And then, yeah, you know, that's basically the build. You know, there's definitely a lot of potential. I think this variant is really, really strong. Not only is the base damage higher than the main Boneshatter, but also this damage ramps up in like very fast, right? Like, I mean, actually, if you use Multistrike, the damage ramping is actually the same, because this is like 1 trauma stack gained every 1.7 seconds with Multistrike. But then in the main one, it's like 40 stacks of trauma gaining 5 per second. So yeah, I guess the ramping speed is actually the same if you use Multistrike, because here you only gain 1 trauma every 1.7 seconds. So it would basically take you the same time to ramp your damage, this build versus the other one. But you take so much less trauma damage and you have higher overall damage that I think overall it's better. You also gain more fortify because you're not using fortify support in this build. You're doing this. So yeah. Anyway, let me know what you think about this build. Let me know if you have any more ideas. I mean, this gem, I mean, I don't want to make the joke, but like, it is very complex. The way that I see it right now is there's 2 different archetypes for this. Like, you could either go Multistrike or less duration. If you go Multistrike, you drastically reduce the amount of trauma damage you take, maybe allowing you to play this build on something that is not Jug or Slayer. However, then your ramping speed is not changed. If you use less duration support, then your ramping speed increases by like 4 times. However, you know, you're also going to take more damage, and it might also be harder to scale your damage, right? So yeah, let me know what you think of this. I think there's a lot of potential. I'm personally going to try this out next league for sure. I don't know what variant yet, but I would love to give this variant a try. I think this variant is like strictly better than the normal Boneshatter, but that's my opinion. Let me know if you have any thoughts. Yeah. All right, the video's over, so you can feel free to close the video now. But just out of curiosity, I want to see if I can POB a less duration variant. Oh, but then I would have to redo my entire tree. Here. Right, because if I do less duration instead of Multistrike. Oh, but then this would totally change the breakpoints and everything. Like, if you were doing less duration, it would be like 2.09 or something, which would give you 4.3. So then you would have to make this value go below 4.3. And then you would have to use a despot axe, I guess. Otherwise, and then your damage would be probably roughly the same. Let's just simulate like tier 3s. Okay, so 4.3, and then you just drop this. Okay, so this is the same thing with less duration. You lost 2 million damage, but your ramping speed is now 2 seconds to maximum damage rather than 8. Is this a trade-off that is okay to do? Maybe. I mean, increasing the ramping speed from 8 seconds to 2 seconds to maximum damage, but dropping 2 million overall damage, but also taking more trauma damage. In fact, this build takes 3 times the trauma damage. You know, maybe you could do it. Maybe you could do it. This variant is probably the same powerful, if not more powerful, than the Multistrike variant. I don't think it really matters too much. Wait, now I forget where I put my skill points from. Oh, yeah, this. Yeah. So the Multistrike variant is Karui Chopper using Multistrike, right? I'm gonna put that in the notes here. Yeah. Complex trauma, 2 variants, Multistrike variant, 8M damage, take trauma damage, 1.7 seconds. Take trauma damage every, well, I mean, take 1/3 trauma damage. And then you have less duration variant, which is 6M damage. Take normal trauma damage. For 2 seconds ramp to max DPS. And then this one is 8 seconds ramp to max DPS. Is this correct? Wait, if I have 4.3, this is exactly 2 seconds to ramp to full. If my attack speed is 1.7 and I gain 1 trauma every 1.7 seconds, it'll take me like 5 seconds to ramp to maximum, right? Wait, it would be, so it's like it's like 6 seconds, right? 6 times 1.7 is like 9. Yeah, it's 6 seconds. All right, so these are basically the 2 variants, and these are like very easy to swap out, as you can see. All you have to do is swap out Multistrike for less duration, and then like maybe drop a bit of attack speed to hit the breakpoint. So one of the breakpoints is 4.3, the other one is 5.2. Let me just write that down as well. So Multistrike variant has breakpoint APS breakpoint. This equals 5.29. 5.29. And then less duration variant is this. Which is this equals 4.31. Well, 4.3. So yeah, you basically have these 2 options. Oh, although the problem with the less duration variant also is you have slightly reduced clear. And the reason for the slightly reduced clear is due to smaller trauma explosion procs. And then the Multistrike variant has bigger procs, because reducing the skill effect duration causes Boneshatter to clear worse, right? The pulse is less. And this one is like normal. Yeah. And then as for like leap slam, the less duration. Oh, the less duration variant is faster for mapping because you use a despot axe. The Multistrike variant uses Karui Chopper. So this is like slower leap slams. And then the despot axe is faster leap slams. So yeah. So there's like multiple pros and cons, right? Like the less duration variant, faster leap slams, less damage, take normal trauma damage, 2 seconds to ramp, less clear. But the multi-strike variant is like slower to jump around, but it has more damage and you take less trauma damage. And, you know, ramping up the full damage in 6 seconds is not awful. And in addition, with this variant, you have a cool thing, which is potential to play Boneshatter on non-jugg / non-slayer ascendancy, if you can find some way to mitigate your trauma damage. Yeah. Oh, and then let me just write down the normal variant as well. No APS breakpoint. This is Despot Axe. This is like 7 million damage, which is like the same, which is like, you know, this basically just this 7 million. This is like normal trauma damage. This is also, well, the normal variant, you need a lot more time to ramp. So it's like 8 seconds ramp to max. 5 APS, 40 stacks of trauma. And then, yeah. But I guess the benefit of this is that you are able to use Berserk / or Rage / Berserk / Excel Shrine. And these are basically the 3 variants that you have available. I would say that all 3 of these are definitely playable. They all have, you know, their pros and cons. I don't know which one's better. But I think both of these, I mean, yeah, they're both good. I have no idea which one I'm going to play. Yeah, the less duration variant and the multi-strike variant are both good. I would say that both of these are better than a normal variant, but again, you know, feel free to let me know what you think. I'm going to link this POB in the description of the video. And this video is getting really long, so I'm going to stop it there. But yeah, let me know what you think. In my opinion, both complex trauma variants are significantly better than the main one. Yeah, let me know what you think. All right, bye.